Hello, good morning. I see the participant number rising. We're just going to give it another minute or two. I'm Jill Thompson, the Director of Admission. I'm joined here by Kalisha Jesse, our International Student Coordinator. You having a good morning so far, Kalisha?
Having a great morning. You know, the sun is shining, it's beautiful. So you can never complain about that.
That's right. The spring weather is really welcome, I will say, especially in this year that everybody in the world has had. So we're really excited about the spring weather. We'll just give it maybe 1 or 2 more minutes before we get started, just to give a chance for as many people to join us as possible. I still see that attendee number rising.
They are coming in.
That's right. And I see we have people joining us from all over the world in there. While we're waiting, if you, as attendees, admitted students, international students, if you would like to say hello in the chat should be enabled. Feel free to say who you are, maybe put your Andover class year if you're willing, and then also maybe where you're zooming in from today, so we can start to get a sense of all the different places that are represented. Oh, good. Okay, so Mr. Brown, here we are. He's modeling for you. Oh, great. Good. Okay, excellent. So there we go. Excellent. We've got Quebec and Jamaica. Oh, very cool. Actually, one of our student panelists is from Jamaica, so that's exciting. All right, we have South Korea. Also, we have a student panelist from South Korea. Awesome. Excellent. Okay. All right. So it's 8:03. Oh, this is so fun to watch. I'm so glad this is all working. Here we go. Oh, we've got Germany, Hong Kong. Very cool. Excellent. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jill Thompson, and I am the Director of Admission in the Andover Admission Office. We couldn't be more excited to welcome you, and I just want to congratulate you again on your admission to the 244th entering class of Phillips Academy. So we say that a lot, 244th. It was in your letter. We're saying it in these events. I just want you to stop and pause for a second and think about what that means. We've had this legacy of 244 years of students joining Phillips Academy from every quarter, youth from every quarter. And this is certainly a part of our event today, is to have students from all over the world joining us. So it's really, really exciting. I just want you to think and for a minute and pat yourselves on the back and just take a deep breath and soak that in of the 244th entering class of Phillips Academy. I want to just make a quick logistical note, which is that we are recording this session today. And the reason for that is that, as you've probably seen, we've tried to accommodate as many time zones as possible with our 8 a.m. Eastern time start time. But we know we can't get all of them, no matter what time of day we try to do an event. So we are going to record it just in case there's somebody who was hoping to watch this event and who isn't able to join us today. Okay, so just a couple of other logistical notes. We are going to have the Q&A feature open for any questions you have for this event. And the chat is also enabled. So that is where you would put, of course, your name and where you're from and your Andover class year. The Q&A is really where we would love for you to share your questions. So please share your questions for our student panelists in the Q&A feature. So our plan for this morning is, in a second, I'm going to turn it over to my really extraordinary colleague, Kalisha Jesse, Mrs. Jesse, who's our International Student Coordinator. She's going to talk a little bit about her role, who she is, and then is also going to endeavor to answer some of the questions that she gets often from international families at this time of year. So to hopefully give you some really good information to walk away with today. And then after Mrs. Jesse shares a little bit with us, we're going to turn things over to a student panel, which I will moderate. And we have 6 current international students who are very excited to answer your questions. I will note they got up very early on their first Saturday on campus to be with you this morning, and they enthusiastically volunteered to do so. So a little shout out to all of our student panelists today for doing that, for giving their Saturday morning and getting out of bed early. So we're going to try to take as many questions as we can from all of you. So again, please share your questions for the student panelists in the Q&A feature, and my colleague, Mr. Graber, will be monitoring those questions and sharing those with me to pose to our student panelists. and we'll get through as many as we can. So thank you again for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and turn it right over to Mrs. Jessie for her intro.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mrs. Thompson. Hello, everyone. Welcome wherever you are in the world. I see a lot of chat, and I'm so excited to see all the countries that you're calling in from. So great to be able to meet you all virtually. And very soon, we hope that you choose Andover and we'll be able to see you in person. I'm Kalisha Jessie. I use she, her pronouns. I am the International Student Coordinator. So that really means that I am the person who, among all the other amazing Andover faculty and staff and students who are welcoming you, I am also welcoming you and making sure that the transition to Andover is a very smooth one. A little bit about myself. I actually am an Andover alum as well. I graduated from Andover, did 4 years at Andover, loved it, and loved it so much that I came back. And it's really special to be back in this role as a faculty member. I'm also a Spanish teacher. I'm also a polyglot. I love languages. And so I am very fortunate to be in the Community and Multicultural Development Office, which is CAMD, which is where my role resides. And I am very excited to be with you all this morning, this evening, and this afternoon, wherever you are. So a couple of things I want to definitely welcome you all, and also to address some of the things that you might be thinking about right now, right? It's an exciting time. What are you going to do? There's so many options, so many choices, right? So many things to consider. So international families right now, obviously, having some time to decide on whether you're coming to Andover. So definitely, I have gotten emails from some families already with questions. And some of the questions usually around this time, thoughts about, what happens if I commit to Andover? So international students, what does that mean? And sometimes people wonder, what does that mean to be an international student? If you're living abroad, right, no matter what your citizenship is, we will consider you an international student. And if you need a visa to study here in the US, we will also consider you an international student. So one of the most exciting things that's happening right now, we are planning for orientation. And families have already reached out and asked about orientation, which is happening in person this year, which is exciting. We've had all around the world, right? Quite a year. But we're very excited. Our international program for orientation is called New International Student Orientation at Andover. And that is going to be this fall in September, right before you all get an extra day to come and get acquainted with campus. And we have an amazing team of international students who really run the show. They are awesome. And we are right now getting ready for you all, those who are coming to Andover, to make it here. And so that orientation is happening in person. There are questions about that. There are also questions about for those who are F1 visa students. And right, this is all of the things you have to do to prepare, right? If you have questions, reach out to me. I can answer those questions. One of the most common questions right now, if you are an F1 visa student, is about that form I-20. If you haven't heard of it yet, don't worry, okay? All that information, once we've got all our students committed, you will be getting emails from me. So just recognize the name. If you get anything from me, open up the email, make sure you know what you need to do. I lay it out very plainly, and just so that it's easy, because there's a lot of work to do, right? It's a process, but it's worth it. For those who are curious, those forms do not get issued out until 120 days before your start date. So you're not missing anything if you haven't got an email from me yet. Those will not happen until early May. So that is a very common question. People are ready for those I-20s because you want, for those who are F1 visa students, to get those embassy and consulate appointments. And one thing that I do want to say that's special this year and last year as well with our incoming class is we are right in a very dynamic world. And I have so much awe, right? And just wonder at you all as international students. I am aware in various countries, the embassy and consulate situation is slightly different in terms of opening. And I know that has been a bit of a concern for families last year and this year, right? Typically, we wouldn't have this issue. But definitely, I'm keeping an eye on it in various countries. But I do appreciate if there is some concern about being able to get an appointment, that you reach out to me, and we try to do as best as we can to help facilitate the process of knowing where to go. But it is a unique year. And so the I-20s, they will be issued in early May. And we're hoping, fingers crossed, that embassies and consulates across the world are open and are able to process those initial I-20 forms and those initial visa interviews. But we will stay tuned, we will stay connected. And I hope that you all, if you have any questions, and I will make sure to leave my information, my contact information, to reach out to me. Um, and lastly, it is amazing. It is amazing and you'll hear from the panelists very soon, the experiences, the beautiful experiences that international students have on campus. Not just the process coming to Andover and new international student orientation, which is awesome. But the whole school year, I am a resource. I'm supporting students. We have an international club. So people ask about that, what special things happen for international students throughout the school year? So many things, from our international festival, to our host family program, which is another question I get a lot, and I'll get back to that in a second, to different events that our international club throws throughout the year, and of course, different awareness events as well that happens throughout the school year, including students will talk about the log cabin trip. And so there's a lot. There's so much that students get a chance to look forward to as international students at Andover. And I think the last thing I'll share, because this is something that is very unique, and I'm very thankful that we have such amazing families, local Andover families in the Andover area who volunteer every year to be host families. And the host family program is such an amazing program. At the moment, we have over 90 families in the program, over 100 students. And it's really dynamic. That process will happen a little later, so in June. So just look out for that. You'll get emails. If you are interested, it is not at all obligatory. You don't have to join the host family program at all, but it is volunteer. If you would like to join the host family program, we do our best. We will find a host family in the area for you, and their role really is to be your American family, your family right down the street, not too far from campus, who serves as kind of your leaning partner, right? They pretty much all have an Andover student at Andover currently, and they just really want to welcome an international family. And so we do matching for that, starting in June and throughout the summer until everyone's matched up. And it's a really unique experience. And I've heard so many great stories about relationships with host families. So I hope that if you do come, that you'll also consider being part of the program. And so that is basically, what I do. And I'm hoping that if you have any questions, that you definitely will reach out.
Great. Thanks, Mrs. Jesse. Just one follow-up question there. Sometimes I get some confusion about the host family. Do I
Mm.
live with them? Obviously our boarding students are actually living on campus. So what kinds of things would a host family maybe offer to an international student who's joining us? You don't live with the host family during the
Correct.
school year. Yeah, exactly.
You are a boarding student, you're on Andover's campus. But the host family, and obviously this year has been an exceptional year where we've had to make some changes. And we will stay tuned to see how the upcoming school year looks. But the host family program, the families will sometimes come to campus when they can, right? If there's a year where families can come back forth to campus and just meet up. Sometimes students will go off campus on the weekend. They'll get special permission. You have to get permission, but they'll get their special permission and are able to stay with the family. Sometimes students will stay with the families for breaks. And that's something that has been continuing even throughout this school year, that has been quite different. Some families are able to host students throughout the break. And so we do try to make sure that we can help students who might need that help. And of course, we're coming from different countries, right? And going back and forth, Thanksgiving break is only so long, right? Maybe I stay with my host family if that's possible. And so that's something that I try to make sure I know in advance so that we can make sure those partners work, those pairings work.
Right.
But no, you don't live with a host family. They call you for your birthday. You know, they might send you something on campus. But it's really, it's a beautiful program. And we also do things on campus. In a normal year, we would do like a opening dessert with families, that kind of thing, and a closing barbecue at the end of the year. So various things that happen, but what's beautiful also is that you get a chance to meet another Andover student, right? Because typically they have an Andover student as well. Great question.
Great. Thank you so much. I know that for some of the students in my dorm who've been international students, their host families have also offered sometimes to take them to and from the airport, you know, something really simple that actually makes a huge difference, I think, in their lives. So thank you, Mrs. Jessie. That was so helpful. Okay. Now we're going to turn it over to our student panelists. So student panelists, if you could please turn your videos on, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Good morning again. What I'm going to ask you to do is introduce yourselves one after the other. Share your name, your class year, where you're from, which I know some of you have added into your Zoom names. And then also, I would love for you to share with our attendees a way that you stay connected with home while you're here on campus. So if you could just share a little tip there. And so, Nicholas, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, sure thing. Hi everyone, I'm Nicholas. I'm from Kingston, Jamaica. I'm from the class of 2023. And one way I keep in touch with my family at home, I would say, is using an app called WhatsApp on my phone. That's been very helpful.
And I think, was Kiefer going to go next? Awesome.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Kiefer. I'm class of 23. I'm from the Cayman Islands, and I also stay connected probably by FaceTiming my friends, because usually they like walk around the street so I can see like more of my island, so I feel more home.
Great. And who was going to go next? I'm trying to remember. Koki, do you want to go? Great.
Sure, I can go. Hey, everybody, I'm Koki. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior from Mumbai, India. And I use WhatsApp and FaceTime to stay connected with my family, but I also, to stay connected with the culture and my memories from back home, I listen to a lot of Bollywood music or Hindi music when I'm feeling homesick. Alina can go next.
Of course. Hi, my name's Alina. I'm an upper from Seoul, Korea, and I stay connected with my family by FaceTiming them. I FaceTime my brother a lot, and I also listen to Korean music when I get homesick. Mafi, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, I'm Mafi. I'm from Guatemala, and I'm on the class of 2022. And to stay connected, I also FaceTime my family. I FaceTime my mom for like everything from laundry to like advice. And another way that I stay connected, I think my room decoration is like pretty Guatemalan, so that makes me feel home. Abdes, do you want to go?
Yes. Hello everyone. My name is Abdes and I'm from Somaliland. And I'm in the class of 2023. And so one way I stay in touch with my family is we just like everyone else, I use WhatsApp, and also I have like the flag of my country like in my room. And also like I sometimes I just get these like food like traditional food, which is like really fun, and like it's one way that I stay connected with like everything that I'm connected to back home.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to kick it off with one question, which I do believe is on many students' minds, and then we're going to go to the questions that our attendees have today. So my first question is, we are in this moment, obviously, Mrs. Jessie talked about how this is a really different year. And so because of the different year we're having, obviously many of our international students who are admitted to the school, probably most, if not all, have actually not been able to visit campus before. And they aren't able to visit campus now, sadly. I know that actually some of you were in this position last year when you were choosing to come to Andover. So I'm wondering if a couple of you would be willing to reflect on how you went about making that decision without being able to visit. Who would like to kick this one off for us? Kiefer, go ahead.
Yeah, so I didn't get to come to campus last time. And so what really helped me was making like a pros and cons list for each school. And Andover, came at the top of most categories. So when I got the chance to like speak to a few students like over email, and that was really helpful, and they answered a lot of questions I had. So yeah, that really helped me.
I like that. That's very logical, Kiefer, a pros and cons list. Very cool. Anybody else want to share a little bit about that for them? Go ahead, Abdiasis.
Yes. So I also didn't get the chance to come to campus when I was deciding like if I want to choose Andover, but I had like this amazing student who was also at Andover at that time. She's a senior right now, and then she told me a lot about Andover, and I have heard a lot about Andover, and it was just like everything that I heard from her and everything that I saw like on the internet, it just matched so well. So like I didn't have actually any doubts like when I was deciding which school to choose.
Great. There was sort of alignment between what you were learning and your impressions of the school and so on and so forth. So it looks like you just really tried to utilize the online resources, the personal connection as well. And certainly if there are any admitted students here who would like to make a personal connection with a current student and haven't been able to do that yet, we're happy to help with that. And I know some of the students here on our panel would be happy to connect with you as well. Okay, here's a question from the attendees, which is a little bit to follow the topic of host families. Would one or two of you be willing to talk a little bit about your relationship with your host family and what that looks like for you? Who would like to start? Koki, I see you nodding your head there. Would you like to start? Okay.
Of course, I can go. Yeah, so I had a host family for about 2 years. I didn't have one for senior year just because I felt that I can take care of myself now. But for the first 2 years, they were super helpful, and we didn't like force ourselves onto each other. So I wasn't like hanging out with them every weekend, but they were always there when I needed them. So we met for the first time at like the opening dessert, and then I got dinner at their house a couple of weeks ago. And I was lucky because they were also an Indian Day student family, so we had a lot to bond over and connect with. So they were always there for me when I wanted to have like a nice home cooked meal that reminded me of back home. They took me downtown to buy snow boots and like woolen socks. So they were very supportive. And I know with some of my other friends as well, their host families have offered to, store luggage and get involved in the storage stuff of the year, which has been especially useful during the pandemic because we've all been packing our rooms up every term. So the storage option with a host family is a very smart idea. So I hope you all get involved with it. Yeah.
The snow boots thing, Koki, is a really good point. We all do need snow boots for the winter term here on campus. So what a nice way for your host families to support you. Does anybody else want to reflect on their relationship with their host family? Go ahead, Mafi.
Yeah, so for me, similar to Koki, my host family, the first year was great. I went like with them some of the weekends, and they also took me to buy snow boots and like everything for the winter. And one time they even like found a Guatemalan restaurant downtown, and we went together. So yeah, even if I didn't go with them like every weekend, they were always there for me, and yeah, it was great.
Great. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, here's another question that's come in through the Q&A. How do international students typically spend breaks? Do you go home? Do you stay with your host family? And also, have any of you participated in study abroad or service learning trips, which I know we have had on hiatus, obviously, for the past year. So that may not be the case for any of you, but maybe you know someone who has participated if you hadn't. Would somebody like to speak to the first part about like over breaks? What does that look like for you? Alina, do you want to jump in there about what you usually do?
Yeah, sure. I think for spring break, I do typically go home. Not always, but most of the time. I think it depends on how long the breaks are. Like for Thanksgiving, I never really go back. But I think for the longer breaks, I do try to see if I can go back.
Great. Abdiasis, I see you nodding your head over there. Do you want to share a little bit? And I know you're new, this year. So maybe you can talk just a little bit about what that's been like for you in this really different year.
Okay, yes. So this was my first time coming to Andover. So I actually came here like 2 months ago. So I was remote for the first 2 terms, yes. And I was able to stay with my host family for the first time during the spring break. So that was really fun. Like it was one of the best experience that I had since I came to the US.
Awesome. That sounds like fun. Next time I'd like to come. All right. And how about the service learning or study abroad trips? We have a Learning in the World program ordinarily that has obviously been on hold. Koki, do you have any friends or have you participated in one of those trips yourself?
I haven't I was planning on going for the Morocco trip over the spring break because I wanted to spend my senior spring break doing that. But unfortunately, that was not possible this year. But I do have friends that have gone on. So the language department has some amazing learning in the world trips. So for example, the PIET program is from the French department. It's like a 2-week program in the northern part of France. And a lot of my friends had signed up to go for that. There's like a short interview process, but basically everyone who applies gets in. It's because it's a language as well as a history trip. So you don't really need a lot to go. And I've heard that it's really fun. And then another trip that I was talking about, the Morocco one, is about art history, and Morocco is like, I love Moroccan food. So I really wanted to go. And then there's a lot of other programs. There's one to Ecuador. So yeah, those are definitely opportunities that you can take advantage of. Yeah.
Great. And we hope that they come back very soon. Kiefer, I'm going to come to you for the next question. I know this has been a really kind of strange year, and I know you're new this year, but what was your adjustment like to American culture and also to the climate? Because I know that you're from a warm place.
Yeah, this is a lot different weather than I'm used to. It's the first time I've had to buy hoodies, but it's honestly not been too hard. Especially like having a host family was really nice. Because like as you mentioned earlier, they like carried me back and forth from like the airport. So that was really helpful. And to American culture, I'd say not too much was like drastically different from where I'm from. So I wouldn't say it was too hard for me, but I know other people might have had a harder time.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to comment on that sort of the adjustment to American culture? Go ahead, Nicholas.
Yeah, I would definitely say coming from Jamaica or from anywhere, it's a very different culture than America. But the one thing you're gonna realize is people here at Andover are so nice and welcoming that the Americans will just make that transition so easily. That's how it was for me anyway. So I met a really good friend who I have now from Atlanta, Georgia in America, who has been teaching me like little things about the American culture, slang words and stuff like that, just be able to blend in. Because I know I had a very strong accent when I first came, and sometimes some people couldn't understand me as well. So he would teach me little things just to be able to blend in more, and now I feel perfectly welcome. And one thing I'd also say about the climate was I'm from Jamaica, which is right beside Cayman as well. And it was extremely cold for me, even in the fall, which is not even the coldest time. So what I did was bring a lot of cold weather clothes, so winter clothes. And then after that, it's really fine because it will keep you warm. As long as you have the clothes for it, you'll be absolutely fine, I would say, with climate. And it would be a super big blast too, because I remember I got to see snow for the first time, and that was amazing. I was with Kiefer at the time too, who was in my dorm, and we got to slide down just like on our backs, like a little hill made of snow, and that was super cool. And that can only happen up here, you know, in Massachusetts where it snows, not in Jamaica. So that was amazing, I must say.
Very cool, Nicholas. I didn't realize that. I will say that in my many years in the dorm, some of the most enthusiastic snow shovelers I have are from warm climates. You know, the students from Massachusetts and New Hampshire and Vermont are like, you want to take my snow shoveling duty? Go ahead, Nicholas from Jamaica, you know? So it is kind of fun. I think at first it's a little bit of a novelty. So thank you for speaking on that. Okay, great. Here's another question. How about, like, how were you placed into your room? Do you get to give any feedback about where you live on campus? Can you talk a little bit about when you first got here, you know, how did that room assignment happen for you? Does anybody want to speak on that a little bit? We have singles, we have some doubles on campus in a typical year. Does anybody remember how you provided feedback once you were admitted? Yeah, go ahead, Koki.
So I came in as a new lower, but I know that for everybody, they send out like a form that you fill out about what you want in a room, what you would want in a roommate, whether you want a single. But obviously, when you're a lower classman, so that's like a freshman or lower, your chances of getting a single are not that high, except in freshman dorms, but I didn't have that experience because I was a lower. But so I've had experiences with a 1-room double and a 3-room double and a single. So a 1-room double is basically when you and your roommate basically share the same room. So both of your beds and your desks are in the same room, and it's a very close bonding experience. So that was what I had my lower year, and then my upper year I had a 3-room double, where you basically have 2 small rooms connected with a larger living space, and that was good for my upper year because I needed space, because upper year is kind of notoriously academically a little more challenging than the rest of the year. So it was, and now I'm in a single because I'm a proctor in my dorm. So you can definitely put in your preferences, and they do take those into account. And yeah, be honest and truthful in those, because don't try to be the best version of yourself, because then you'll be put with a roommate who expects that from you. And if that's not how it's going to work out, then it's not going to be a very nice year for either one of you. So I would just say be as honest as you can in your reflections.
That's really good advice, Koki. And I would say the single biggest factor of whether a roommate pair is going to work or not is if you're honest on the neat or messy question. If you're not neat, don't put that you're neat because you want a neat roommate, because that probably won't work out as well. But other than that, we take great care if a student will have a roommate in placing them with a roommate with whom they have something in common, or would like to learn about something that they're a quality or characteristic that their roommate has. So we do, it's not that we throw kids into rooms, we really spend a lot of time and put a lot of care into making those assignments. So please know that that's the case. Does anybody else want to speak about your room? And I will just put a little shout out to Mrs. Malik, who manages our Andover admissions Instagram, has actually been putting some videos of dorm rooms, so you can kind of see what a 3-room double looks like, what a 1-room double looks like. So she's been trying to populate the Instagram with some of those views. So feel free to check that out as well. Does anybody else want to talk about their dorm room and what that's like to live in a dorm, and you know, which dorms you've lived in, just a little bit? Mafi, do you want to share a little bit, because you've been in a couple of different places on campus?
Yes, so when I filled in the survey, I asked for a single. I came in as in lower 2, but I ended up having 1-room double, but it had like a door in between. So it was really nice because we both had like our space, but then we were together a lot of the time. And it was honestly great to have a roommate the first year, I would highly recommend, even if I wanted like a single at first, it was great. And now I'm a prefect in a 9th and 10th dorm. And now I have like a single room, which is also nice because as Koki said, like after you have like a little bit more time at Andover, like it's also nice to have your own room.
And we can see your room behind you, Mafi, which is great. Everybody who's on this panel is actually currently here on campus, which is very exciting. Okay, so staying on this note, I love these practical questions. There was a question that came in about sharing bathrooms, restrooms, showers. Like, how does that actually work in a dorm? Alina, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so this year I think it's a little different, but I think like in normal years, you just have like a shower caddy with all of your things in it and you just go shower, but not for that long because normally like I know like at least in my dorms, it's always been like at night, there's always kind of a line, but it's not that bad. Just don't take like hour-long showers or anything. But yeah, I think it's actually fun because like getting ready for bed at night, I think that's kind of sort of like a hall bonding experience too, because you have to kind of rush sometimes if you didn't manage your time well before that. So I would say that it's really not that bad and you get used to it pretty quickly.
Great. And just a quick note that usually there's a number of different bathrooms for each dormitory. So like one hallway or one pod will be sharing a bathroom so that there's plenty of space for everybody to use the bathrooms. Okay, this is a great question. For any of you who were not necessarily native English speakers before you came, did you experience any sort of language barrier? How was it to kind of transition? This is a great question that came in through the Q&A, to a school where all of your classes were taught in English. For those who didn't necessarily grow up speaking English or go to school where English was the primary language of instruction. Does anyone want to speak a little bit about that for the group? Go ahead, Abdiaziz.
Yes. Okay. So this was my biggest fear when I was coming to Andover. So I first started learning English in 2016. So like that was the first time I did, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to go to like a place where English is the primary mode of like communication. But it is totally like it is totally fine. Like it is just something that you're afraid of, but like nobody's gonna judge you like for your like how you speak English. It's just like your accent. Like people be like when someone sees like a different accent, they actually appreciate it. It is something that you'll realize when you come to the US. Like it is something that people like look into and like appreciate, notice. So it is not a matter of like language barrier. It's just trying to express yourself. That's all you have to do. Just like say what do you mean and then say what you want to say, and there won't be like any hardships that come with your communication.
Great. And how about like if you were maybe this is one of the first times you're actually writing a lengthy paper in English and you needed support with writing in English, where would you go? Or just actually general academic support? Who would you go to? Your teachers, your advisor, the Academic Skills Center? Like where do you all turn when you need support academically? Who would like to speak to that a little bit? Mafi, go ahead.
So for me at first, what was like different was like writing a lab paper in English, like a full lengthy lab report. And so my teachers have been like really supportive. So I just talked to my teacher and I was like, this is the first time I'm doing this. Can you please help me out? And they're always glad to like take the time to explain to you and go over it with you and go through like the basis and then like more specific details. And sometimes you can even like send your first draft or like an outline and they will like check it for you. And then there's also this amazing resource on campus that's called the Academic Skills Center, where if you are having trouble with a paper or with like time management or anything, basically anything you need, you just go to their office and they are always so helpful.
I agree, Mafi. I wish I could utilize the Academic Skills Center. It's a really extraordinary resource on campus. They're really magical over there. And we encourage students to lean into that really wonderful support. There's the writing center, there's the math and science study center, so all sorts of ways that you can get help. Okay, here's a great question, which I know Mrs. Jessie touched on iClub a little bit in her introduction. Can one or two of you talk a little bit about cultural affiliation clubs, international club, things that maybe you've been involved in, either as a new student who is being welcomed by some world partners, or because you are involved in some of these things? Who would like to talk about that a little bit? What some of those opportunities are on campus for kids to get involved in cultural affiliation clubs? Go ahead, Kiefer.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about my like NISO experience, which is, you know, New International Student Orientation. I had a really good experience. Like we got put into like small groups of, I think our group had about like 6 people in it. And we were all from all over the world, and there were like 3 seniors, and then the rest of us were new. And it was actually a really good bonding experience because I met them. They were like the first people I met before I even came to campus. So like I could ask them questions. Like this was all over Zoom, but I could like ask them questions that I had, or you know, find out more about like international life at the school. So it was really helpful. Yeah.
Great. I'm so glad that that was so helpful for you. And again, as Mrs. Jessie said, we're going to do this orientation this coming year in person, but I'm sure there were some really wonderful benefits to being able to engage over Zoom over the summer. How about anybody else who's involved in any of the clubs through CAMD, or any of the cultural affiliation sort of opportunities on campus? Koki, I see you nodding. Would you like to jump in there?
Sure. So I first, speaking to Kiefer's experience, I was a world partner both on campus one year and off campus the other year. And I think they did, I just want to give a shout out. iClub, they did an amazing job of like just moving everything online. It was great. So I hope you get the in-person experience though. And in regards to clubs, iClub is a great place for all international students to come together, but there are also other affinity spaces, such as, you know, Asian Society. There's Indo-Pac, which I'm a part of. I'm one of the co-presidents, which has been one of my safest places on campus. It's where I feel most reminded of home. It's the Indian and Pakistani affinity space. So there are there's AFLADAM, there's also Muslim Student Union. So there's a lot of affinity spaces where you can be with people who share your culture and your identity and just be in a space of community. And we also have, that's why, several celebrations. So for example, there's a Lunar New Year celebration every year. For Diwali, like lights are put up all over Sam Hill. So the school and these groups do a really great job of making it feel like your experience is integral to Andover. So yeah.
And shout out to Mrs. Jessie, because I know she would not take credit for it, but she's the magic behind a lot of that that happens on campus. So, okay, here's a question for those who have been on campus prior to this year, because of course we've been so focused on health and safety protocols this year that this has been a little bit more limited. But in terms of like studying in the evenings or during the day on campus, I'm wondering, Koki, Mafi, Alina, if one or two of you could talk about whether, if you've had a roommate, like what does that look like in the evenings? Is it okay to study kind of in your double together, or have you accessed other places on campus to do your work in the evenings or at other times of day? Go ahead, Alina.
So I had a roommate last year, and I would say that it was honestly fine. I think because we each have our own work to do. I feel like if anything, like having someone study with you is almost motivating to like not look at your phone or whatever. But there are definitely so many spaces on campus that are really nice for studying. Normally, I would say I go to the library. There are different floors, so if you really need some place like super quiet, there's a room called, I don't know what it's officially called, but there's a room called Silent, and everything's super quiet there. But if you also want to study with friends, there are different rooms where you can go in like with a group of friends and study there, and there's an entire upstairs. So, there's also like one of my personal favorites is the Addison. That's the art gallery. Sometimes I like to study there like during the day if I'm really feeling adventurous. But I would say that it's, yeah, honestly, every building on campus you could probably study in.
Great. Excellent. Mafi or Cookie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so for me, I also had a roommate, and I personally love working like in my room. And she did too. Sometimes she would go to the library. But similar to Alina, like it worked really well because we were both like focused, but then we would take like breaks and talk, or we would even like ask each other questions. But I also agree that the Addison is one of the best places on campus to work on. They have like cookies on Wednesdays and stuff. And for me, I play squash, so I used to go to Snyder to work there before like practice or after practice. I think it's a really nice place too.
I like to work in Snyder too, Mafi. It's a beautiful new building, and it's a wonder. There's a lot of these like little study pods where you can sit and work. So great. Those are good tips for everybody here. Okay, we're coming to sort of the end of our time together. So we have time for about 1 or 2 more questions. I'm going to throw this one at all of you, and I would love for each of you to answer this question, which is, and we sort of started this way as well, but if you had just one quick piece of advice to give, either about making this decision about coming to Andover, or about what you would recommend for when the new international students begin here. So thinking back to that time, either when you were making the decision to come or when you first started. And I know for some of you who are new this year, this has been an unusual start, of course, to your Andover time, but is there one sort of quick piece of advice that you would give to our newly admitted international students and families? Would you be willing to share just something quick with us? Okay, so who is ready? And then we'll just sort of popcorn from there. Who would like to share their piece of advice with us to start? Go ahead, Nicholas.
Yeah, I would definitely say holding on to your culture from your home country. Coming to America again is a completely different culture. So my piece of advice would be to hold on to what you have and even share it for sure with your peers, because just in and itself, being international almost makes you stand out in a very good way. It's amazing how people will just gravitate towards you just for being international. They want to know about, where you come from, your accent, even like Abiasis was saying, like people will just love to hear you talk just for the way you talk. It's amazing. But yeah, hold on to your music, your food experiences in your home country, and just be ready to share that because it brings a great experience.
That is excellent advice, Nicholas. Thank you. All right, I'm just going to call on you guys. Koki, do you have a piece of advice?
Yep, I do. I would say something that, a piece of advice that I have is just take your time. It's very easy to be a new student and be kind of stressed out by looking at other new students around you. Maybe they're making friends really quickly and you're getting stressed and panicked about it, but give yourself time. Everything works out in the end, and don't try to rush things. Everybody finds their place at Andover, and you will too. So don't worry.
Thank you, Cookie. That's great. Keeper, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say just really don't be afraid to try new things here. Because for me, American football is not a thing in my country, but I ended up starting to play it this year, and I actually really enjoyed it. So I'd say definitely try to do new things and go outside your comfort zone, because you came to Andover for all the good stuff that they offer, so why not try it?
Really neat. Thanks, Keeper. Alina, how about your advice?
I would say to like put yourself out there, but also take care of yourself. I think that sometimes it's so easy to, be involved in so many things, and then you kind of forget to take care of yourself. And at one point you're just like, oh my God. So I think if you need some alone time, like take it. If you need to like sleep in, do that. I would say do whatever is best for you when you need, so that you can be the best version of yourself. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Alina. And Abdiasis, how about you?
Yes. So this advice, not actually mine. It was given to me by my like wall partner during NIS orientation, and she was just like, find your community. Andover is like Andover has like a huge body, like a student body, and you can find anyone like everyone is there. So just find your community. It will be easy to connect. Like that's why I went to join to like the I club student, like international student club, which is like the most, like it is the most exciting thing that happens to me like every week. I love me going there, like meeting the new international student and former international student. It's just so good. So I would just say find your community, stay connected, like just get in touch with them. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Abdiaziz. And Mafi, we're going to end with you. And I think this is actually going to be our last question because you guys have had such wonderful reflections here on this. And I know we've gone a little bit over our time. So go ahead, Mafi, and then I'll close us out.
Okay, so I think my main advice is just like be yourself. Like at first, as an international student, like you can come in from a lot of different places and that can be scary at times. But like just know that regardless of language and regardless of culture, like you will find yourself in like an English version if that's the case, or like just trust that whatever happens, you will always find yourself. And as long as you are just like as you are, everything's going to be fine.
I think that's a really great way to end, actually. So thank you so much to our student panelists, to Mrs. Jessie, to Mr. Brown, who helped me with the tech side of things, to Mr. Graber, who helped with the managing the Q&A in the background, a Q&A extraordinaire gentleman there. And I just want to say thank you again to all of you panelists for being willing to get up early and to welcome our newly admitted international students. I really hope that our attendees, our admitted students and their families have enjoyed hearing from you. You all have been wonderful and we really appreciate you participating. And to our admitted students, if you have remaining questions, we are here for you. You can certainly reach out to me, you can reach out to Mrs. Jessie. I'm sure that our panelists here would be happy to connect with you as well if you have further questions for them about anything that they have said here or shared with you today. So, so this is just a note to say thank you for participating. And we are so excited again to welcome you to the Andover family. And please, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if we can do anything to support you in making this decision. Have a wonderful evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever this finds you. And thank you again for joining the Andover community. Take care, everybody.